Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. So glad that you can be here today. Today, by the way, beside being a regular Aloha Friday, by the way, if you didn't know, today is National Joe Day. I thought that was kind of a cute one. So it is our day to honor anybody named Joe. So it could be Joseph, Josephine, Joanne, whatever your name, Joel, I've got a good friend. So if you know anyone with Joe in their name, you could wish them a happy Joe Day. Or what I will be doing later, I see a few of you are doing now, start the day with a cup of Joe. And you can have a little bit of coffee either during the meeting or a little bit later. And that would be a way we could celebrate as well. And so, so here at PSG of Mercer County, while we are unable, as most people, to meet in person, we wanted to keep ourselves active and provide us a forum for us to all meet and get together, provide some information. We have our virtual meeting. We started this last week. It was a big success. So we will keep these going for the next few weeks until the Princeton Public Library is able to open their doors again for groups. There are a lot of resources that we have. Hopefully you know about them. If not, you will in just a moment. Certainly LinkedIn. We talk about LinkedIn a lot. Job seeker groups do talk a lot about LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group. And so the name of the group is called PSG of Mercer County. And so when you go into LinkedIn, look for our LinkedIn group. And if you are not yet a member, what you can do is when you find the group, click the join button, and you will be put first in pending status, because what we do is we do put people in pending status until we verify that you've been to one of our meetings. And this counts as one of our meetings. So if you've put your name and I see that you've joined, but I've never met you before, I'm not familiar with your name, I may just send you a quick email, remind me which meeting you visited, and we will instantly accept you. But the reason why we kind of make it a little bit of a private or semi-private group is we're trying to keep the name collectors and the list collectors out. This is a group that is just for people that have been to one of our in-person or now virtual meetings. So that's the only reason why we put a little bit of a delay on it. But what happens is it tends to make the group members, the value of having the members a bit more strong for us, because we're all people that get and understand job search. And it's a good opportunity for you to then reach out to somebody in the group, and likely they will get back to you because they understand job search. Won't just be one of those people you're connected with that won't understand the value of replying. So we try and keep ourselves a stronger group that way. Our group now, just this past week, crossed 1,500 members, 1,500 members. So no matter how many connections you have in your LinkedIn group, you can now extend that by up to 1,500 people. And anybody in the group you can send a message to, even if they're not yet your first degree connection. So go take a look at that when you have a chance. Also, we do have a website. Our website address is psgofmercercounty.org. There is an event calendar there. Our event calendar is now completely updated with our online meetings. It does include the link. So if for some reason you lose the email that we send you each week that has the LinkedIn link to connect to this virtual meeting, you can just go to our event calendar. It's psgofmercercounty.org and click on the events tab. We are always active working on updating the website. This week, we've actually put a lot of effort into updating our e-learning page. And so the e-learning page now has links to 35 e-learning websites. So if you've got a little bit of extra time because you are keeping yourself at home, securing yourself at home, want to look for some e-learning opportunities, not sure where you may find some good websites, look in our website is professional development. There's a tab right on top. That page opens and there's a link for e-learning, and there are now 35 links. Some of those sites are free, some of them have a subscription, some of them have a pay for class, different sites that are there, but we have 35 so far. So go take a look at that. Just as in a moment, I will turn the control over to Bill. Bill will give his presentation, and Bill, you turned your video off, so the moment I'll turn it over to you, just be aware. Oh, there's Bill. And but I want to let you know just a couple of ground rules for our virtual meeting. Of course, this is virtual. We work a little differently than an in-person meeting. So I will turn control over to Bill, and Bill will present a slide deck and talk through the different points. We are going to keep audio off, which is basically your microphones. We have over 60 people right now on the call, so if we had microphones on, I would just be concerned there'd be too much background noise. But if you look at the bottom of your screen, you kind of wiggle your mouse over it, there are a couple buttons at the bottom, and one is called Chat, and that will open up a window on the right side of your screen. So use Chat to ask questions along the way or at the end. What Bill is going to do is have take a pause somewhere in the middle of his presentation. And between he and I, we will go through the chat and answer a few questions midway to try and make this as interactive as possible. And then he'll continue with the presentation, and we'll do the chat again at the end. You can choose to keep your video on or off. No worries, that's up to you. And so that's the basic ground rules. Let us get into the presentation. So I'm just pleased to welcome to all of us, welcome our presenter today, Bill Pigula. Bill is a terrific friend of PSG of Mercer County. He's been extremely active with our group for many years, and he is also proudly a member of the PSG of Mercer County Executive Committee, managing the content of the PSG job boards pages. Bill's also an instructor for PSG's monthly Monday morning series, from which this program is taken, but he has since enhanced it, so it's an updated version. Previously, Bill achieved success as a pre-sale consultant at the Teradata Corporation with expertise in justifying architecting and implementing solutions for clients with data warehouse and business intelligence needs. Before joining Teradata, Bill was the marketing manager on the IBM Global Risk Management Development Initiative. In his IBM career, he also managed a diverse group of client-facing systems engineers in New York City and taught classes at the IBM Finance Industry Center. Bill is currently president of Fisher Visualization, LLC, a management consulting firm that extracts valuable business insights from data and turns these insights into stories that improve business results. So PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome one of our very good friends, Bill Pigula. And just give me a moment, Bill, and I will turn over host to you. And there you go. And you can share your screen and get us going.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? I guess you won't respond.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. And David, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I was thinking about doing this on Zoom, and seeing all your faces reminded me of back to my childhood, and this might bring some of you back, but I grew up near Buffalo, New York, and out of WBEN in Buffalo, there in glowing black and white was Romper Room. And as a 6-year-old, you got to watch, I can't think of her name, Miss Patty or Miss somebody had a magic mirror. And she would look around, hold the magic mirror up, it was a handheld mirror, and say, oh, I see David, and I see Natalie, and I see Frank, and I see Sharon, and so on. And if she ever said, and I see Billy, I got all excited. So anyways, sorry for those of you whose name I didn't mention, but I see you all. So that's that for Romper Room. I'm going to start this off with another good friend of PSG is named Beth Fitzgerald. Maybe some of you have seen her present at PSG. She had a quote today from Maya Angelou, and I think it applies here. And here's the quote: "Stand up straight and realize who you are, that you tower over your circumstances." That's the quote. I thought that was really profound and encouraging in this time of anxiety and job stress and all of that. That you're like a tree, and you're looking over all the circumstances. So with that, let me get the presentation up. Okay, almost there. Thank you for your patience. Okay, this is my session that I've been giving now for PSG. I have enhanced it. And what we're going to talk about is the big picture of job search, which is where that tree comment fits in. What is a marketing plan and why have one? And then get down a little bit into the nuts and bolts of how do you create one. Plus, I've added some COVID-19 considerations. If you're paying attention to the press at all, you'll know that there has been just a flurry of new unemployment claims this week. Just because people have had their jobs cut, and that's a whole different topic. But you'll see in the presentation here text or comments in this kind of orangey red color relate to that specifically. So job loss is something, it's like any major loss in your career, in your life. This grief cycle is most often associated with loss of a loved one. And however, losing your job is significant no matter how it happened. And people go through these phases of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance as a normal course of events. So I remember when I got laid off, I was in denial. I really didn't think that it was really going to happen. I just kept on working for a while, and then after that, anger took over, and I just was anxious and asking the question why happens a lot. Bargaining is the next phase, and it helped me to go talk to people just to get the emotional support that I needed. Or I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was a relief to get the emotional support. After a while, though, I got overwhelmed, and what am I going to do? And it took a little while to get through that until you start to accept it, and then you start to make plans. Now, those plans might be, and probably should be, how am I going to find my next job? Put your foot out, your nice positive, I need a new job message. You got to make sure you get all the anger out of there first, because a future employer will sense that, and it may hurt you in the long run. So take a little time at the beginning. So from here on in, we're more towards the end of that curve, although getting through the ending is where I just left off. For me, the most important thing I did is assess my financial position. This is just knowing where you are and what your runway looks like. I was blessed to have some severance, which helped, but understanding all of that gives you a good base. Now, over on the right, the thing to think about if you're one of the recently unemployed because of coronavirus, make sure you check with your HR department. Do you have any special job loss benefits? You want to make sure you capitalize on that. And sometimes they have deadlines associated with them. So, so don't sit on that one. Certainly registering with unemployment, the coronavirus is a reason to start unemployment because you're not laid off on you're not leaving your job voluntarily. That unemployment's there for a reason, and there's no shame in taking it. The last thing is kind of obvious: spending adjustments. If your income is less, if you can look at things in your budget that might be able to trim temporarily, by all means, keep that in mind. So, with all of that said, then you can start to think about the beginning and start to assess yourself. And this is the time to be positive. What are your skills? What are your strengths? What accomplishments did you have? And what do your friends, your coworkers, and your family say? This is, that last bullet was important for me because I was worried. I like to work alone. And so I would sit at my desk and try to do all these things. And I think it was somebody at PSG told me to make some phone calls. And I had a couple of conversations with people I consider either close acquaintances or friends, very open-ended. And just asked them, I kind of prepped them ahead of time what I was going to ask. But it was very reinforcing and a positive thing to hear other people point out your good qualities. And they pointed out some that I didn't even know I had. So don't shortchange how your friends might be able to help you in that regard. There's a book out there. There's the reference to it will be at the end in a bibliography called "What Color Is Your Parachute?" And it has a good chapter on self-inventory. And should you need some guidance in that, that would be a good thing to do. So now that we're in the world of job hunting, some of you may have never looked for a job since you got out of high school or college. The world has changed. These are kind of caveats, but this is the road. This is the way the road looks like. There's no wrong way to look for a job, and there's no right way to look for a job. That means it's an art. It's more of an art than it is a science. And it's always mysterious. Here at PSG, we have people stand up and talk about how they got their jobs. And about at least a third of them say that it was, all of a sudden I got a call and they offered me a job. They had interviewed and gone through all the steps, but whether or not, 3 weeks, 4 weeks might have gone by. So it's mysterious what's going on the other side of the desk. It takes a lot of hard work and some hard thinking to get yourself ready to do this and to keep it fresh as you're going through it. And it depends on a certain amount of luck. If the interviewer that you're with today is having a bad day, well, that's just dumb luck. There's also good luck that maybe a position has opened up that you can help fill. I think there's going to be some luck on the other side of this set of unemployment claims. Now, this is a personal statement. I think that the economy is going to cut too deep, and people are going to be needed to help the economy grow back. So that should be an encouraging thing, and it'd be good to get ahead of that curve. The final point is that technique and practice can always improve luck. That means some of the stuff from PSG and other job groups, job sources, can give you some tips as to how to be effective in your search. Likewise, interview practice. David mentioned looking at your video, looking at your picture right now and seeing how you look on your screen if you're asked to do a video interview. All those things improve your luck, and it's kind of like when I was a self-taught golfer, and I don't know if any of you have played golf, but if you try to do it yourself, it can be ugly. So what I did, one of my friends actually advised me to take a lesson, and I did, and immediately the pro gave me some things to practice that that improved my game, and so I became a fan of golf lessons and also getting some coaching in other fields. This is the way, back in the day, this is how you might look for a job. Different techniques from the best to the worst. Knocking at target companies using directories, knocking on doors, asking your family and friends for job leads. This is one that maybe I should have starred, but participating in the sharing economy. Now, Uber and Lyft, I think, have really tanked, or as far as drivers go, but the delivery services have picked up with people being closed in and they're calling for takeout. So it's still viable. The unemployment office. Often I found in years gone by that the unemployment office has a lot of jobs, but they're lower level and probably hourly wage jobs. At this time, the unemployment office is a friend. They have the programs. They're the ones that might have some additional assistance if you need it. So don't rule them out. Joining a job search support group is really important, and doing these Zoom videos is a way to show that people are working with each other and supporting each other. One thing about Zoom.com, if you go on there and look, you can get you can download the app on your computer and you can host a Zoom meeting just like this. So if you have 4 or 5 friends that you would like to host in a call about some topic, doesn't have to be job search, it could be pet care or gardening or whatever it is, you can start your own group using Zoom. And this app is free. It has some limitations. You can see them on the site, but it would be a good way to do some face-to-face, voice-to-voice networking. Trade journals, answering ads appropriate to your field. If you have a reputation in your field especially, that could get you a tip that you might not otherwise get. Using private employment agencies or search firms, that I'm not so hot on. Paying somebody to find a job for me is not something that's high on my list of alternatives. If a company is looking for people, that's a different story. And if they hire the employment agency, that's fine. But just go in with your eyes open. A corollary to that is be careful of scams. When the economy does weird things like this, that brings out the people who are trying to separate your money from theirs. So and separate your money from you. So be careful. Don't ever give money in to somebody in order to provide to pay for supplies or pay for tools or whatever. Blindly mailing your resume doesn't work that well. And responding to job postings on the internet, That generally has a very low success rate as well, but you can use the internet and in order to find those companies that are actively hiring. For example, if you went on the internet and looked for companies that are planning to grow in spite of all of this, or once all of this ends, if you see that they're hiring recruiters, that might be a tip that they're looking to fill positions, and they need recruiters to help them fill those positions. So just a thought. Back to the marketing plan. It's a tool to use in your job search, helps you focus. That's where the hard thinking comes in, but you come out of it with a clear idea of what you want and need. It can provide a tool for others to help you, and it can shift your search. By doing that hard thinking, it can get you from looking for a job that you can get into a position that you really want and you'll be happy in. So what is a marketing plan? Now, I took this from my experience in developing and marketing software products, and this is what a marketing plan would look like in the green there. It consists of a brand in the light blue. It consists of a real assessment of the target market and the competition, and then I got a typo there. It also includes communication channels and how are you going to get the message out for your brand to the target market. So we'll talk about each of those areas. Okay, this is a duplicate of oh no, it isn't. It helps you focus. It gets you a consistent message. Again, doing the hard thinking lets you put down some ideas and direction, gives you some direction to so that you can have your story straight. Defines the target market, and this kind of falls in the category of time management, but it helps you eliminate non-starters, those companies that are not a fit. Why is that important? Well, if you ask some people who've done this a while or who have succeeded through PSG or other groups, they will tell you that looking for a job is a full-time job. And that means there's more to do than there is time to do it. So you don't want, if a company's not going to fit, you don't want to spend much time on it. And the marketing plan will help you sort those out. And it also documents how you'll communicate to potential employers. 3 weeks ago, I would have told you that you're seeing, if you think you got it bad, the hiring manager probably, or I'm sorry, the recruiter for a company probably has 200 resumes out on his desk or her desk for a given job. And then that person winnows those down to 10 or so to give to the hiring manager. You need to get to the top of that stack of resumes. And using your channels is a way to do that. So for the job seeker, it's a marketing plan looks very similar. Instead of the product brand, you have the personal brand. Instead of a target market, you have target companies. And you have communication channels as well. But those channels are different. You have your resume, which is only a starting point. You have LinkedIn, which is critical. You have gelled down your message and put it into an elevator speech. The next one is what David talked about earlier, and video is video. Now, with social, this is an important point for everybody, not just people who just lost their job, so it's not starred, but with social distancing, the plan, what you're going to see is fewer and fewer in-person interviews and many more telephone, and video interviews. So if you're deciding what you want to practice, think about that. Think about how are you going to do a phone interview? What tips do you need? Or the place? How about for a video interview? Look at your your background, at your lighting. I'm sorry, but you kind of become a stage manager at the same time. So so be aware of that and gear up for it. Leave behinds are always important. You can use your marketing plan or part of your marketing plan to be that, as well as if you have work that you might have done, if you're a writer, if you have a sample, for instance. Those are all communication channels, proves your personal brand to your target companies. So if you're new to this, and you may be saying, well, I have a resume. Well, let's look at the difference. The resume looks backward. What have you done? What were your accomplishments in doing that? And what do you know? Marketing plan is more future oriented. What do you want to accomplish? What are your strengths? What are you looking for? And how will you be found? Now, the resume actually provides input into that. So if you have a resume, it's not work lost. You still need it. You'll need it to, the purpose of the resume is to get you a job interview. The marketing plan is bigger and really makes you come up with the plan for your job search. So to do that marketing plan, a good starting point is to figure out where you're going. Big question is, what is success to you? Success could be make a lot of money. Success could be helping people. There's no wrong answer to that question, but narrow it down for yourself. What do you love to do is another way to look at it, or a different flavor of looking at it. What puts you in the zone? I know for me, there are some things in my database career where if I had a problem, I could sit down at 1 o'clock and I would work on that problem. Next thing I know, it was 5:30. And I didn't really pay attention. Those are the kind of things, time flies when you're having fun, right? Those are the things that are indications of what you enjoy. What do you do best? What are you recognized for? Financial requirements is really one of the elephants in the room. Talking about an ideal job is great, but if your financial requirements, your ideal job could be very low paying and you need more. So it requires some good thinking and strategy to get you into a position where you can meet your financial requirements. What kind of corporate culture would you flourish in? That's an important one too. Personally, I'm a morning person. So I had a job about 1.5 years ago that was with a small software-oriented company in Princeton. And it was great. I was on the learning curve a little bit, but I was doing fine. But what I realized is, I should have realized it in the interview, is that I asked the owner of the company to give me a start time and an end time, just as a guideline. And he kind of hemmed and hawed, and he said, well, the first person gets here at 8:45, and I had pushed him, and he finally said, okay, quitting time is 5:30. Great. So I went to my job, I did my work, I came back, and at 5:30, I started packing up and leaving. Well, after a week or two, I looked around, everybody's still there. And a week or two after that, I got called into his office, and he said, it's not working out. Thanks. And he paid me till the end of the week. So what I learned from that is the corporate culture there was everybody works late. And I talked to somebody afterwards. He said, yeah, most people leave at 7:30. Well, that really didn't fit my body clock. And so it wasn't a good fit. I didn't know it. Just give you that those things happen. The other anecdote on that is, what is the generally acceptable name for your job or role? In my old company, Teradata, I was called a solution architect. My job description was I would go out with the salespeople and I would help the technical people and technical management understand what we were trying to sell them and how it would fit. Whenever I wrote down solution architect looking for a job, I would get a totally different response. I would apply to solution architect jobs, and they were someone who can come in and understands the coding language to put together these various technologies and make them work. And that wasn't my skill. So I wasn't getting any callbacks. And finally, a resource at the unemployment office actually pointed me to this website called ONET. It's there next to resource near the bottom. ONET is a collection of job roles and job titles and descriptions of those roles and titles that are generally accepted. So it turns out, after we looked at ONET, my job solution architect wasn't what I was doing. What my job is called is pre-sale consultant. And once I started applying for pre-sale consultant jobs, I was able to get callbacks and move forward. So another pothole that you might not anticipate, be aware of it. The other thing is, once you figure that out, then you can go to LinkedIn and you can search on people with that same job title. See what they do. See how they describe themselves. That'll help you with your elevator pitch. That'll help you talking about the job. And you may know them, or they may be a contact that somebody else knows that you could get some coaching from. So a lot of good things there. Self-knowledge, again, where are you heading? These are the other things you have to ask yourself. How long do you want to commute? Are you willing to relocate? Do you have any special family considerations? Those are kind of the boundaries of your job search. And I would, as you're doing your hard thinking, plan around that too. Someone at PSG a month ago actually landed, and she was telling her story at the front of the room and described the new job. And she said, my son asked me, Mom, are you going to take that job? And that set her back a little bit. And she said, well, yeah, my marketing plan says these are all the criteria. And so, of course, I'm going to take the job. So it's good to think about this stuff before you're under the gun. Forward-looking, it emphasizes your personal strengths. It drives communicating these strengths from your channels, and it identifies target companies for you. Now, at the bottom there, let's not forget our eye on the prize here. We need to find and convince an employer who has business needs that you are the best person to meet those needs. It's all about the employer, and it's all about the business needs. Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. We're talking about the marketing plan. And what are you marketing? You're marketing yourself, your knowledge, your experience, your motivation. Never underestimate the importance of enthusiasm and your differentiators. Differentiators meaning you versus brand X. Remember that stack of 200 resumes. 199 of them are brand X. One of them is you. So you are trying to differentiate yourself in that pile of resumes. What is the recruiter and the hiring manager comparing you on? They're comparing on your background, your skills, your track record, perhaps your age. They have some perceptions. Younger is cheaper. Older is inflexible, and so on. The key to success is to refocus the conversation. Do your research so you understand the employer's business problem, and then how are you the best person to solve that business problem. You're always going to have the comparison criterion above, but changing the game is to focus on value, and specifically your value is the way out of that. So you have to do that hard thinking. What is your product or your service or your role? What value do you add? And what part of it makes you stand out? Now I say at the bottom, answer these in 15 words or less. That's going to be pretty hard. We all have resumes. We've all done things in our careers. So, but it may be worth starting out just writing it down and try to boil it down to 50 words and then try to boil it down again to 25, whatever works for you, but boil it down. What are you known for in your brand? There's two categories, qualifications and differentiators. I'm going to go down the left column first, qualifications. What problems do you solve? What's your knowledge and accomplishments and your experience? What skills do you have? Everybody is going to come in with the list of qualifications. The differentiators are often something you can't put down on paper. First impression, there's never a chance to correct the first impression. Your enthusiasm. Was it Alex Freund says, no one buys a car from a grumpy salesperson. Knowledge of the target company. You got to do your homework. I had a recruiter tell me on Monday that a person who doesn't know about the target company, that's an immediate rejection, even if you get to the interview stage. The next level is how can you help? With whatever it is they're facing. And the final one is motivation. And again, that's a little bit less tangible, but through your enthusiasm and your stories about how you've helped other employers, motivation comes through. Here's a tool to help you with the brand a little bit, and you have to segment things into internal and external. Now, this is there's a job coach named Lisa Rangel who has an analogy, and she said, what she says is you cannot change the wind. So if you're at a lake and you have a little tiny sailboat and you're in the boat and you want to get across the lake, you have the goal in mind, but the wind is blowing in a certain way, and you cannot control the wind. So what you can control is where you're pointing your boat and how you're setting the sail. And if the wind changes halfway through, you have to adjust your sails and point your boat in a different direction, but you can still get across the lake. So that's like with all the turmoil these days, I think that's an apt analogy. Adjustment is important. But let's look at some of the external factors on the bottom. This is a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You've probably seen this. But areas of opportunities that are beyond your control is a growing field or industry, or complex skill requirements in a position, or it's an opportunity for if you can meet it. If there are inefficiencies or skill shortages, those are all opportunities. Now, threats. Threats are internal people. Some of us have seen it happen where you have, there's an internal candidate but the corporate HR rules say you got to go outside and get 3 external candidates. But the internal, lo and behold, the internal cabinet candidate gets the job. That's just going to happen. It's out of your control. Low cost orientation is something that we all face. We've faced it in the last 15 years. Sometimes that's one of those things that explains things, but it may not get you the job. Management is too busy. Everybody is operating short-staffed, and so they just don't get to you. That's why follow-up on an application is important. If you can, every 2 weeks or so, tickle the, bad choice of words, if you can remind the hiring manager that you're out there, that's a good thing. The suitability expectations is kind of a nebulous thing, but hiring managers it's all about them, and they have certain things in mind. And maybe the suitability expectation for me and my story was, the expectation was I'm going to work till 7 p.m. So those are out of your control. Other candidates are out of your control too, and what they do and what they bring. What you can do is understand your strengths. Get those down so that you're ready, and understand your weaknesses. Now's the chance to, if you're doing job search, it's not 40 to 50 hours a week looking at want ads or looking at the internet. Spend some time sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey says. Get a certification. That'll give you some confidence. Do some things that improve your attitude, and maybe even pursue a hobby that while you were working you were unable to pursue. All work and no play fits in this scenario. So here's some examples of differentiators. What do you bring to the table? Do you have a track record of anticipating problems? Do you save your employer money? This one is in red. Are you reliable? Some of us, in order to keep the wolf away from the door, may take a stepping stone sort of job. If you were to go to Amazon right now, or Walmart right now, it would be very easy to get a job that could generate some income. A differentiator in the people applying for those jobs is, are you reliable? Do you show up? So just be aware of that, especially if you're playing in that stepping stone sort of game. And then if you have track record of on time and on budget, that's terrific. In the end, as far as your brand goes, this is what you would like to do, and you want, these are, and in italics, that's what the hiring manager, those would be the ideal thoughts. You want to build credibility, and you want that manager saying, this person can help me. You want to encourage curiosity. That hiring manager is in a position to say, tell me more about this, or tell me more about that. That's kind of a nuance of the interviewing, is you don't need to tell them chapter and verse your whole life story. You want to leave some things, hit the high spots, and let them ask you for more so you can get a conversation going. And communicate likability. That's a fit thing, where especially in a smaller firm, the hiring manager or the owner is thinking about, how are you going to work with the other people? Very important that people don't always think about. Okay, we got a resource. on this specifically. If you were here last week, you heard Adrian Turner, and her brand power presentation at PSG in Mercer County. Goes deeper into brands than this will, and I'd encourage you to watch that at your leisure. And it's on the PSG website, as David mentioned. Okay, we interrupt this program for some questions from the audience. So David, how are we doing?
Yeah, so there are a couple. For those of you interested, there is a chat window, and what you can do is just highlight over your screen. The menu at the bottom will pop up. Click the chat button. There've been a couple of questions. Make sure that when you send the question, you either send it to everyone, we can all read it, or at very least to me. If you send it to a different person, we may not be able to get to it. So one was, is the deck going to be emailed? The deck is going to be on our website. It's actually there now. This slide deck is there right now. psgofmercercounty.org. On the right side of the screen is a link for meeting presentation documents. All our presentation documents are there, including this one. This video will be available later once I download and edit it. For a leave behind, Bill, can it be a standard business card?
Yeah, I would think that would be the minimum. We'll get to that. I'll talk about it a little bit later. But yeah, business card is a great leave behind. When I use that, especially in, say, not a formal interview, but in a conversation, or a leave behind could also be part of your marketing plan. We'll look at that, or a sample of your work. But yeah, business card, professionally done with your contact information is certainly a good leave behind. If you're in an interview, of course, having extra copies of your resume, that's another leave behind. Anyway, yes.
Okay. No other questions just yet, but a comment for maybe all of us, if you'd like. We are not going to be doing introductions or elevator pitches at the end. That was an earlier question. It's just too hard. We've got 90 attendees right now, so it'd be too hard to do it that way. But one suggestion came through. On your name, you could see yourself in the participant list. You can update your name. So some of you may have put a handle or first name only. If you'd like to be known a little better among the participants, you can actually change your name by highlighting your name on the right side, and then press the rename button. So one suggestion, it might be a little bit helpful that way. Let's see, another question. When I would like to have a 15-minute discussion to network, would I bring my marketing plan and not my resume?
Well, I would always bring my resume. Whether you leave it or not, you make that call when you're there. You may bring a marketing plan that's cleaned up for external consumption. And don't make it an either or. You could, you may probably, when you're having that conversation, you may have already sent the resume to the person, especially if there's a middle person brokering the conversation. Say, for example, I wanted to meet Valerie for the first time. I might ask David if he knew Valerie, and Valerie would, David would say, yes, I know you both, and he would introduce us by email. I would send Valerie a resume ahead of time to say, this is me, for you to review before our conversation. And then I would present the marketing plan rather than just drop it, then just leave it. I would explain a little bit what it is. Good question.
Yep, okay. Let's see. So is the presentation on the website the updated one from today? So the one you sent me last night, Bill, is it this exact one?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. Now the marketing plan document similar to this. They're actually in two places. This one is where I just said, in the meeting presentation document link. When you go there, you'll see the link for today's program. But on the lower right portion of every page is something called PSG links, sample document links. And that also has one called, that's a sample of the marketing plan. So somebody asked about that. So if you do want a copy of a sample marketing plan, that's there. And also on the right side is something called training programs. And we have a link for developing your marketing plan. That's the one that Bill presented a few weeks ago on a Monday. So it's a slightly different version than this. This is the one that includes, since somebody asked, the information with COVID-19. Let's see, is there an alternative to LinkedIn Find Nearby tool for those wishing to add more people to their network? Well, LinkedIn Find Nearby, even though there are 90 people on this call, we are not physically nearby, so LinkedIn Nearby won't work. But of course, you can search within LinkedIn, use the tool itself, whether on your smartphone or on the PC. Okay. Here's another question for Bill. Does leaving the resume put extra pressure on the person toward helping you find the job?
Well, that's a good question. You have to know the person, or that may also be one of those on the fly, make a decision whether you want to leave it or not. And you certainly want to be sensitive to it. If I'm going to modify what I said a little bit before, I might even wait until the person requests a resume, which is very common. If I'm having a conversation with somebody, they may send me an email saying, "Bill, please send me your resume," before we talk. Rather than forcing it on them, I would maybe wait for that. I'd have it in my back pocket, and it depends on how the conversation goes. You're right though, that sometimes a friendly conversation to talk about a job role is not the place to be saying, "I'm looking for a job and here's my resume."
Okay. Alex Freund also made a very nice point to everybody about the differentiation between the marketing plan and developing your value proposition. So do take a look at that. Let's see. David Steinberg commented that he uses a marketing plan as a leave behind, not a resume. So he finds that helpful in an informational interview. So we've got some good questions. Maybe Bill will move on.
Okay.
And then we'll take questions again at the end. So thanks, everyone.
Okay, well, I'm going to take advantage of the break to welcome the opening of baseball season. And so I know that with social distancing, nothing's happening now, but I have the Philly Fanatic is here praying that the season is going to open soon. So
my Mets hat, Bill.
Pardon?
I'm going to get my Mets hat.
Anyway. Okay, so this is our favorite chart. Let's talk about target companies a little bit. Going into as I said before, going into a company to talk to someone or even if it's a casual conversation around that company, not knowing anything about it is a showstopper. There's a lot of sources out there. With Google as your friend to learn about what's going on with a company. Glassdoor, you have to kind of take some of the reviews with a grain of salt, is another one. Also, I found it helpful to go to some of the investment stuff. If it's a bigger company, go to the investment pages of, you can key in the company name and say stock price, and that'll bring you to Morningstar and others, and they'll have concise paragraphs about the companies, what they do, and so on. and or what they're facing right now. Another source there is the annual reports, and I always found it most enlightening to read the chairman's letter, which is usually at the front of every annual report, and that contains, in plain English, what they're thinking about, as opposed to diving into the numbers and seeing how big accounts receivable are. So those are all things you can do to research, and then you can extend that. Maybe you know some people who work there. LinkedIn will let you find people who work there that maybe you don't know. And if someone in the middle is, so if you have a common friend with someone you don't know, as I hinted at before, you could get that common friend to introduce the two of you. One thing I learned this week that is actually a pretty good tip is, especially if you are looking for something immediately for more of a stepping stone sort of role, is Indeed.com, search for urgently hiring, and you will find companies that maybe because of coronavirus, or maybe because of who knows what, maybe because people have to take care of their kids or whatever, they need more help. And that may be a way to learn about companies, or to learn who is hiring. Volunteering is another way where you'll meet people who might work and who might be able to help. Trying to find contacts for informational interviews is important, and then we're back to showstoppers. Are there sacrifices involved with the job? Maybe commuting to Pittsburgh might be a little bit too much of a sacrifice. Although I know a person who did that for a couple of years, where he commuted on a Monday and then worked over the weekend in Pittsburgh and came back the following Friday for a long weekend. So it's your call, but sometimes you might need to eliminate a target company because of a showstopper. This is kind of borrowed from a sales idea of the funnel. With the research and talking to people, you identify an opportunity and determine the fit. Reach out to build a relationship and some trust building, perhaps with a recruiter, perhaps with your friends who work there, and get them as recommendations, and then get into the hiring process and get to a job. Now, the point here is that you start out with many opportunities, and you start to throw out those opportunities as the fit gets bad, or you don't have a relationship or whatever. So, for what it's worth. Talk a little bit more about the informational interviews. This is going to be, a month ago, I would have said, this is where you have an interview either by phone or in person for 20 to 30 minutes to talk to someone about the job and the workplace. Ideal person to talk to is someone who's in a similar role, or not a recruiter. The preparation for it is, besides understanding something about the company, is to come up with 8 to 10 questions that you want to have get answers to. It's something that you're not really there to sell yourself. You're trying to find out about the job and about the workplace. When you have those 8 to 10 questions, and you sit down, I would, it's always good to respect the person you're meeting with, to respect their time. So when you set up the meeting, say 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Then go start to work on your questions. And when you get all those questions answered, the meeting can be over. Now, I've been in these situations where at 15 minutes, I've said, well, I've gotten all the answers to the questions I had. You know, is it, how's your time doing? Or is it, the person might just say, well, I booked you for a whole hour, so let's talk, which is great. Number one rule is never ask for a job. That is really an opportunity killer. If you position the interview originally as being an informational interview, it's not to, you're not looking for a job. The purpose is not to see how you would fit. And believe me, if you do say, boy, I could really, you just told me about a business need and I could really fill that, that was the end of the conversation. And so be aware of that restriction. Okay, now we'll get to channels. Who might want to learn about you? Remember that stack of 200 resumes. Your network contract, many people in your network may not know you are looking for work. Target companies have different people who are also interested in the fact that you're out there. Where would you look to find out information about a person in your profession? Well, here, some of the ideas of channels are listed there on the left. The resume is a traditional. You gotta have one. It should be, you should have a resume in an accepted format, and it should be tailored to an opportunity. And its purpose is to get you an interview. The accepted format is, we could spend a whole hour on that, but there's many people have two resumes. One is the pretty one that if you pass it across the desk, it has a lot of white space, nice consistent fonts, and so on. The machine readable resume has got all the same content, but with all the formatting stripped out, so that the applicant tracking system, another hour presentation, will be able to read it and accept it. You don't know exactly, like if you're applying online, you may be asked for that machine readable sort of resume as opposed to the traditional. One thing, and I've heard this from recruiters, is if you're looking for a differentiator, and besides tailoring your resume to the opportunity, provide a cover letter. That's an important differentiator. I've had a recruiter tell me that if it does not have a cover letter, they don't consider it. So it's that little extra step that could really make you rise to the top of that pile. LinkedIn these days is the site of first resort for a company with a need. And think of LinkedIn, if the recruiter or the hiring manager looks on LinkedIn, he's going to get a list of people similar to if you did a Google search. Now ask yourself the question, if you do a Google search, how many times do you scroll to page 2? If you're like me, probably never. Same thing with LinkedIn. So if you want to be high on the list of people that come up for your job role, so it's a good thing to put time in to getting a completed profile on LinkedIn. Now there are a number of resources. Lisa Rangel does a class on that, and I think through PSG and other job search groups, there are seminars on LinkedIn, that to get you to 100% complete. That's the goal. The other way to enhance it is to be active on LinkedIn. If you see an interesting article in your field, post it. If you have a comment on somebody else's article, enter a comment. All those things are evaluated by the LinkedIn algorithm and will cause your position to rise in that list. So LinkedIn is really important. Don't leave home without it. The internet. The internet is another social media tool, I'm using general terms, to let you get noticed. Join Twitter. Because my field involves graphics, I'm on some blogs and professional forums in the area of visualizations. Contribute to those. Get on Twitter. If you have it in you, post a video about something that's professional. The more active you are, the greater your visibility. In addition to looking at LinkedIn, that hiring manager is also going to Google your name, sorry to say. And so the more you have out there, the more you show that you're motivated. Another thing I heard this week, which is kind of cool if you're in that stepping stone role, is Google or go into, like, say, Indeed and look for urgently hiring. And that's a special set of keywords that will bring up people who are looking for people now. So be aware of that. The other channel is verbal and video. You got to be ready to tell your story. And you got to be ready for, say, a video interview. That's one of those things where practice makes perfect. You can practice to yourself. There are technical tools on your PC that'll let you record yourself with your PC's, with your laptop's camera. And you can, it's always good to, get a trusted friend to do a mock interview with you. So practice. The final item is business cards. This is a reminder for who you meet, and it's advertising. And not only at the end of the informational interview, that's a good thing. Whenever I meet anybody professionally, I offer them my card. The only time they've ever turned it down is when they already have a copy, and they don't always do that. My little preference for business cards is to just get a plain card, not glossy, and leave the backside blank. This is my personal preference. I like to give somebody a card so that they have a space to write a note on the back. So if I'm memorable for some reason, or where did they meet me, they have a place to write the note. If you have a navy blue back on your card with your web address, well, that prohibits that. Likewise, if you have glossy paper, sometimes pens don't work on that. So, my tips. Okay, David, we'll do another round of questions.
Okay, so if you'd like, certainly feel free to enter some chat questions. There were a couple that I was able to answer while we were going along. One, I'll reiterate, on the right side of our website, the right side of every page of our website, psg@mercercounty.org, is a link for the sample marketing plan. So that's available there, as well as a link for meeting presentation documents, so you can download this presentation. There is one other question. Let's see. Is it helpful to listen to the company's latest earnings report? Wondering if you have what your opinion on that is.
David, I've never done that. I have been to those conferences when I had it in a job situation, and I really didn't learn much. So I would What I would say is, if you're interested in that, listen to one, or there might even be a recording of it, and see if it's valuable for you. I'd appreciate the feedback. If you find it to be valuable, shoot me an email or something. That's a good point.
It's certainly helpful to bring that information in the interview in case a question comes up, or if you want to form a question to ask in the interview. So it can be helpful there.
Thanks, David.
Another question. I've seen business cards that say on the back, "We met at fill in the blank." Is that a good idea?
Oh, I think I kind of look at that as a personal choice.
Okay.
It's on one hand, it's helpful, and to give the person some direction as to how to do it. But on the other hand, I don't know. It's your call on that one.
Okay. One person asked, "What links do you suggest as a source for information on earning reports?" And since you don't look at them, I guess you may
Right. Well, most corporations have a tab across the top, or a series of tabs, and one of them is investors or financial information or something like that. That'd be the place to start.
Sure.
But I imagine every company is different.
Also, Dun & Bradstreet should have information. Hoover's should have information. You may need subscription for those. Subscriptions may be available through your local library. Securities and Exchange Commission may have information, so you may look at those as well.
And some of the investment sites like the Motley Fool and Morningstar has a lot of free information.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot out there, and if you just when you key in your Google search, kind of key it around stock price for the company, and you'll get a ton of different sites to go to.
And private companies, that may be harder information to come by, so just be aware they may not be obligated to report that, where publicly traded companies would. Let's see. How valuable is a reference librarian for using Reference USA for finding targeted companies?
Well, I think that's a good shortcut. I think the reference librarian can really coach you as to the ins and outs of Reference USA and other databases. So I don't know that you need them full-time all the time, but I would be asking how-to questions so that I can go on and do my own research at next time without the reference librarian.
I can tell you that I learned how to use Reference USA from a reference librarian at the Princeton Public Library. The Princeton Public Library does offer a service for free called Librarian by Appointment. You do not need to live in Princeton. You don't need to be a library card holder. You just need to be in the library and make that 1-hour appointment. So I found that helpful as well. Looks like that's the end of the questions for now. So I guess, Bill, maybe just quickly, if you have another slide or two for information or contact, that's fine. And if not, then just turn control back over and we'll wrap up.
Okay, well, let me go through the rest. And I think,
okay, good. Oh, you had two intermissions.
Yeah, 2 intermissions. Okay, so if you're the employer, here are some of the questions in your mind. They're evaluating you. Can you do the job? Will you do the job? And will you fit in? What makes you stand out? And can they afford you? I don't really have a good approach to the last question of can they afford you. In the past, what I've done successfully is to tell them I'm willing to work with them. And I've also said, well, I know I made more money at a large corporation at a previous job, and I understand that that's probably not the level you're looking at. So, but anyway, try to address those own questions in your own mind and in your body language and all of that, and that'll be all positive. Okay, so this is if it was a month ago and you were looking to find work, you're looking to find work that fits you. Do your homework and understand your own needs. Find a bridge person. Networking is still important, and the ability to build your network, nourish your network so that you have people that are on your side and who are willing to help you out when the time comes. Again, interest organizations and needs, and remember, you're interviewing the organization as much as they're interviewing you. So that, be aware of that you have some power in this too. And the power of the thank you. There is another differentiator to use the old-fashioned snail mail thank you note as after an interview or maybe even a phone conversation. It sticks out because use the 80-20 rule, 80% of the people don't do it. It's probably more like 95% of the people don't do it. So that's it can be another channel if you use it. And maintain your contacts, the people you have, and this is one of those do as I say, not as I do. I'll admit to that. But when I have an informational interview with someone, I have the best intentions of getting back to them in 3 months and saying how it's going. Most of the time I don't, and that's shame on me. Don't be like me. Okay. How do you use your marketing plan? It's focus. It's consistent message. You want to have we talked about channels. The message that you put on LinkedIn and on a website and in your resume and when you're talking to people should be consistent. They will be looking at multiple channels. You want to tell the same story in each. And that includes something you can share with those who we've talked about already. And leading kind of an external version of your marketing plan with an informational interviewer, I think is fair game. Just to, if nothing else, to remind them of you. Not asking for a job, just saying this is about me, and they'll do with it what they will. Out on the website, we have a sample marketing plan template. It's done in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and it has some main sections. Sorry for the eye chart. It's got your information, your desired job or jobs, your positioning statement of your qualifications. The blue is meant to be filled in by you and changed to black, but how you use it is up to you. And your competencies, your areas of expertise. I also have a table here that is for the general area of your skill. For example, in this case, it's account management, and then specific abilities within that area. It's all about, it's another way to put your story down and to identify for yourself what it is you want, where your value add is. And below that is something called target companies. And you could put down, say, if you're in pharma, you want to look at Bristol Myers, you want to look at Merck. And the minimum is to just fill in that table. You can expand that to, and I've seen it done, I don't have a sample of it. You can expand that to include goals to say, this week I want to reach out and make a contact at Merck. And hold yourself accountable to those goals. So you could make this a 2-page document or 3. This is not a set form. This is something that make it your own, modify it as you see fit. And we talked about a little bit about where you might use it as a leave behind. Where I always draw the line for leaving behind is I would, for the generally, or for the publicly available version, I would drop off everything below the competencies. So I keep the competencies and I keep the table, but I would get rid of the targets and any other stuff that might be personal to you, and just talk about this is me, Bill Pigula, and this is what I'm about. I always felt that if I put a list of 8 or 9 target companies and I leave it with someone, they may in turn pass it on to somebody else, and next thing I know, the fact that I'm looking at 10 companies might be held against me, or one of them might be held against me. So that's my opinion. And again, it's a Word document. You can edit, cut, and paste however you like. Okay, in April 2020, these are the same things we saw at the beginning. It's not an art and a science, and technique and practice help. I'm not going to go through the whole list again. Job hunting and social distancing. This is added for this presentation. You're faced with, some people are faced with a sudden reduction of hours or a job loss. And that could turn into anxiety and panic. That might be in the very initial stages, something you go through. I had a high school teacher who told us all as a class, the plan to take the SATs math test was to get the task and immediately panic and get it out of the way and move on. So I think easier said than done, but do things that you can lower your anxiety and your panic. Some companies are preparing to grow. Some companies are preparing to take advantage of the upswing when it comes. And guess what? They might be hiring recruiters. So if you look at their job listings and you see that they have openings for recruiters, that's a hint. Thriving industries around here, I see pharma and healthcare. Call it e-tailing. I mean, Amazon is the prime example, but I think other firms are selling goods online as well, and delivery. We talked about this, expect more phone and video interviews. Somebody pointed out last week that the COVID-19 economy is like the post 9/11 economy. That has got a lot of implications that, the world is not going to end and people will still be hiring as recovery happens, just like with 9/11. The other thing to think about is if you're in this situation of social distancing and the stepping stone thrown into the job market unexpectedly, COVID-19 is an opportunity to have a hole in your resume. A lot of people are affected, and if people ask you, what were you doing from 2020 and 2021? It's easy to say, and people will understand that you were affected by COVID-19 and your job was affected by COVID-19. So that's a small silver lining. It's still important to differentiate yourself. It's also it's also an opportunity, if you want to change your industry or change your role. You can position yourself any way you want in this situation. Of course, you got to be able to back it up, but you're not limited to be a junior accountant too. Finally, two things. Tend to your own health and to the health of others. It's easy to get depressed. It's easy to not to get off your exercise program. If your gym closed, you might have to start walking a little bit. I'm not a doctor, but it's always good to have some exercise and make sure if you have health problems, check with your doctor first. And finally, it's an opportunity to help others and cut people some slack. Whatever you give, you'll get it back eventually. That's the way the world works, I've noticed. The hiring manager and somebody that calls you on the phone for an interview, they're under the gun too, and they're worried about their own family, and they're worried about the business besides. So they might be a little short or a little preoccupied or something, and just be aware. Everybody's going through it, and the friendlier you are, the easier it'll be on them. Further reading. Okay, I talked a little bit about what color is your parachute. Last Monday, there was a good article in the Times of Trenton, and that's available on the web. But it's a survival kit for all in New Jersey who are newly unemployed. It's kind of a flyover with 9 or 10 things that you should keep your eye on as a newly unemployed person. Strength Finders by Tom Rath does a survey, and it helps you determine what your strengths are and what positions you might be most suited for. The Tom Peters article, A Brand Called You Is Old. It's in Fast Company magazine. I'm providing the link. And that is a shift from being a worker bee into being a brand. It's a good article, kind of gives some detail to what we talked about today. And there's a book by Michelle Tillis-Laderman called The Connector's Advantage. It is all about being a connector and networking, and in the true sense of the word, in putting people in touch with other people as well as putting yourself in touch with other people. There's a couple of good sections on if you're an introvert and how does being an introvert play into being a connector. So that's a good book. It's kind of the textbook for being a connector and networking. There's an upcoming video conference. Just heard about it yesterday by John West Hadley, who's a friend of PSG. Takes place on April 2nd, next week. COVID-19 in your search. So you can go to that link and register for it if you like. It's free. It could be valuable. There are websites that have tons of good information. The landing expert is Alex Freund, and you may know Alex from other PSG meetings or other groups, but he specializes in interview prep, but he has a ton of advice and is he's objective, which sometimes is what you need. The Career Sherpa is Hannah Morgan. She's located in upstate New York, but she has a lot of articles about various aspects of job search. Good site. I found a new site. Called The Balanced Careers. I found it as part of a Google search there's an article out there about how to handle a job search during a pandemic. Another good resource, but the website itself has got a number of different, it addresses a number of different points about job search. And finally, New Jersey has come out with a special portal to help people who are affected by COVID-19. They've asked employers to raise their hands and say, I have positions, and put them out on this website so that you can go and scroll through them. There's a lot of companies. The caveat is there are a lot of them are stepping stone jobs. For example, Amazon is out there. CVS, I think, is out there. But you know, they're jobs to get you by. But I haven't looked at them all, and I don't know if the breadth of the kind of jobs they have. But those are the ones I saw on a quick examination. Okay, David, any final questions?
So, folks, this is our opportunity. If you've got a question or two, use the chat window. It's on the right side of your screen, and Bill and I will be looking for any last-minute questions. I appreciate all the wonderful comments that people have made. Also, obviously, a couple of conversations that you've been sharing information among each other. That's terrific. I agree, this is not really social distancing. This is just in-person distancing because we are socially together with a tool like this. Let's see, can you incorporate a job posting you found online into an informational interview? Phone call.
Oh, interesting. You know, I wouldn't. I would want it to be, I would like to get them talking as much as possible. And it's all the informational interview. If something comes up like that, let them be the one to bring it up. If you could turn that job posting into a statement about what they do as a company, or use that as information when you're developing your research, that's one thing. But I wouldn't be as blatant as to say, oh, I see you're looking for a junior accountant. I would let them talk as much as possible and not try to plant words in their mouth.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good, helpful advice. Let's see. A couple of thank you notes. Going once. Going twice. Well, Bill, I'll tell you what, why don't we wrap this up? I see your contact information is there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll move it over to you.
Okay, good, thank you. So just a little technical change in the presentation here. Okay, good. So it looks like I am now the host.
Thanks, everybody.
Good. Well, Bill, thank you so much. This was terrific. There have been a lot of nice comments, so I appreciate that from the people, but obviously our attendees and members and guests. But I'm certainly very appreciative, as much as everyone is. Thank you for doing this presentation. Just as we wrap up, folks, a couple things. Yeah, if you have not done so already, please join our LinkedIn group. It's PSG of Mercer County. If you are joining us for the first time, if you don't mind, you can also send me either a LinkedIn request or an email, just reminding me that you're new to the group. If not, I'll reach out, because we only accept members into our LinkedIn group who've been to our in-person group or now who've attended our virtual sessions. And since we're not truly taking attendance, it's a little bit harder for me to validate who has been here. So maybe an email back and forth between us to confirm. And also let you know, we also now have a YouTube channel. We will continue to post our online recordings for the virtual meetings in our YouTube channel, as well as in our meeting presentation section. So that will be available very soon. This program is recording now. It'll wrap up in a moment. There'll be a little bit of editing, and I can post that later today. What's coming up, we'll be meeting again next week. Gary Landy, career coach Gary Landy, will be presenting his program called Letters. This is a terrific program. It's about thank you letters, cover letters, and more. So many times we've had professionals and coaches presenting to us about LinkedIn and resume. now marketing plan, but never about the importance and best use for letters. So looking forward to Gary's presentation next week, April 3rd. And then the following week is April 10th. That is Good Friday. I know some people may not be able to make it, but if you're able to join us, I'll be giving a presentation called Uncover the Hidden Job Market. Statistically, about 70% of jobs that are open are not posted. That was from Forbes magazine a couple of years ago. Today's economy with the COVID-19 may be just a little bit different, but statistically, and so we'll talk about how we can kind of uncover those. So that's what we've got coming up for the next 2 weeks here at the Breakfast Club, PSG of Mercer County. The Breakfast Club of New Jersey will be meeting on April 11th, also doing a virtual presentation. Look for their email, look for their website, thebreakfastclubnj.com. I'm doing a presentation 8 o'clock in the morning on the 11th, how to work as a consultant in the gig economy. So that's what we've got coming up at the Breakfast Club. So I'm pleased to be able to be invited there. So that's our meeting for today, folks. I'm glad that you were able to join us and participate. Thanks again to Bill for your presentation. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful. So wish you all a good day and a good week and a happy Aloha Friday, and look forward to seeing you online very soon. Bye, everybody.